lie. And you know, if it's Wednesday, it's all about politics, and in particular, the state of the nation. So much going on in this nation, and of course, not to forget ICC dominating the news and other news as well. So I brought on a man who knows a thing or two about the state of this nation, even though he's always at a lookout post outside the country. So he's outside looking in, even though he's one of us. He's a distinguished professor, yes indeed, and also former dean of the SUNY, that's the State University of New York, School of Law in the U.S. You know who I'm talking about. He writes a weekly column in the Sunday Standard. He also happens to be chairman of the Kenya Human Rights Commission, KHRC. He's in town, and the last time he was in town, he said some pretty controversial things right before the visit of U.S. President Barack Obama. Let's hold him to task. It is time. Sit back. His Twitter handle is @Makau Mutua. Mine is @Koinange. The hashtag we're using, State of the Nation, or simply SOTA. It is time. Professor Makau Mutua.
Jeff Koinange.
Good to see you, brother.
The one and the only.
What a tie.
The one and the only.
What a tie.
You like it?
I love it.
Oh, wonderful.
Can I have it afterwards?
I can make some arrangements. I can make some arrangements. Yes.
You have a sense of humor, Prof.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
You've been based in Rome for the last several months.
Since February.
Correct.
I've been a scholar in residence at the International Development Law Organization, which is a rule of law international group that works to vindicate access to justice, help construct judiciaries and teach lawyers how to be professional and to provide justice to people who need it.
Yeah, and when that gig is done, you're over at the World Bank for a new gig.
I'm going to be there at the World Bank.
In Washington, D.C.?
In Washington, D.C. for the better part of this year and the next. Essentially what I'll be trying to do is helping the bank figure out how to incorporate human rights values in its projects.
That's a big deal for you, isn't it? Human rights.
It's a big deal for me. It's been in my life. My life has been spent either advocating for, fighting for, or writing about and teaching human rights.
In a little while, Prof, I want to talk to you about they call it compensation for the Mau Mau, but we like to call it reparations, which it's a big deal here, and it's happened, and you were part of it. You led the case against the British government all the way to the High Court in the UK.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that in a while. But first, when you were last year, we were talking in particular about the upcoming visit of President Barack Obama.
Yes.
And I asked you, look, is he going to shake Deputy President William Ruto's hand?
Yes.
And you said?
Well, I think first of all you are asking the question because in fact, President Obama did end up shaking Mr. Ruto's hand. I think a lot of people who listened to me heard what they wanted to hear. And what they heard was not what they think they heard. I said that it would be a big mistake, a diplomatic faux pas, a kind of a historic mistake for the Kenyan state to make, to put Mr. Ruto, a man who is indicted for crimes against humanity at the International Criminal Court, to put him in a pathway of President Obama to be able to shake his hand. Now, I must say that initially I was gratified because when Mr. Obama appeared at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, Mr. Ruto was nowhere to be found. Apparently, he had been closeted somewhere and, locked away so that he does not embarrass Mr. Kenyatta. But it appears that somewhere during the visit, I think either pressure was brought to bear on Mr. Kenyatta to allow Mr. Ruto to appear in public, and so Mr. Ruto did appear in public and in fact shook Mr. Obama's hand.
You still think it was a big mistake?
I think it was a big mistake. What I said was that he should not shake his hand. I never said that he would not shake his hand. He should not shake his hand.
Right.
Yeah.
And it happened?
It happened.
A couple of weeks later, ICC comes up with a ruling that recanted testimony from witnesses can be used in that case.
Yes.
Unprecedented with the ICC. It's never happened before.
Well, I think, Jeff, as a jurist, when I look at an international tribunal, I'm looking at how competent the tribunal is, how effective it is, and can it deliver justice to victims. I'm looking at those things. Now, international tribunals suffer from several defects. One defect in particular is that international tribunals do not have the police. They don't have their own police forces to be able to arrest people. They don't have their own mechanisms for protecting witnesses, really. They rely on the goodwill of states to do that. The ICC does. This is one of the biggest weaknesses of the ICC. That is why the cases against Mr. Kenyatta and against Mr. Ruto have really turned on witnesses. This has been the biggest, if you will, difference maker in those cases. A lot of the witnesses recanted their evidence. Others disappeared. Apparently others were eliminated. I mean, I don't have, hard evidence to back that up, but I think it's been reported, by various media to that effect. What the ruling did, which is based on the revised Rule 68 of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence of the ICC, what that did was to make it unprofitable for a sinister suspect, and I want to emphasize sinister suspect, who might interfere with witnesses, who might make them recant their statements, who might even eliminate them, is to make it unprofitable for such a suspect to do that, because prior recorded statements of those witnesses will speak either from the grave or from wherever they are. Yeah. So the rule seeks to cure a very serious defect within the ICC structure.
Let me play devil's advocate, Prof,
yes.
and ask you, what if the witness had been coerced financially, or somehow they were coerced to say what they had said initially?
Witnesses can be coerced. We all know that. Witnesses can be intimidated. And witnesses can be coerced and intimidated by either side, either by the defense or by the prosecution. It happens all the time in national jurisdictions. However, there's a peculiarity about the ICC cases, in Kenya, against Mr. Kenyatta and against Mr. Ruto. Virtually all the witnesses who have recanted their testimonies, or who have refused to testify, or who have disappeared, are witnesses who belong to the prosecution. Yeah. So I think what the court was looking at here is a pattern that was being established. And I believe that the court was convinced that a pattern does exist in which it is plausible to believe that witnesses have been tampered with. And that is the basis upon which recanted testimony was then allowed. Don't forget as well that, that these statements were taken from witnesses, but the witnesses swore to the truth of these statements. They swore to the truth of these statements. Now, the question is going to arise at the end of the day when the judges admit those statements. In rendering judgment, they are going to ask themselves, what kind of weight, what we call in law probative value, are they going to place on those statements? Yeah, and and so I would say that people should not panic. The Rule 68 is a good rule. It seeks to make it unprofitable for a suspect to tamper with witnesses, and that's a good thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Once this evidence is used, or if it is used,
yes,
is Mr. Ruto is he in a difficult position?
I would say that just prior to this ruling, I had given the case probability of success of maybe less than 30%. Simply because as Chief Prosecutor Bensouda herself had said, that there was not enough good evidence for conviction. She was expressing some despair in that respect. However, these particular statements now make it possible for the case against Mr. Ruto to really take on a new dimension. Number one, The statements are there, and I think they are damning. They are damning statements, number one. I think they place him in various places where the violence was planned and executed, you know, and that's an excess that is a criminal legal matter you want to prove. The second thing that the statements do is the statements seem to corroborate each other. You know, so one statement strengthens, you know, the other statement. You know, the third thing I think, you know, that is very serious is that the statements cannot be rebutted. You know, you cannot cross-examine a statement. You cross-examine individuals. You know, they are not live individuals in court, so his defense will not have the option of cross-examining the witnesses. Yeah. So it would have been much better for those witnesses to have been present, to have testified, and for Mr. Ruto's lawyers to have come forward to confront them.
Prof, at the same time,
yes,
you spoke about pressure a moment ago.
Yes.
Is there pressure on the part of the ICC to get a conviction? Because if you look back, they've only had one conviction since the ICC began. Thomas Lubanga in the DRC. One conviction. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars, if you will. Is there pressure for them?
Let me say this. I think there is always pressure on the prosecutor to get a conviction. You know? But the prosecutor of the ICC is not the ICC. There is a complete war of separation between the judges on the one hand and the prosecution on the other side. So I would say that if I was Ms. Bensouda, I would be working, you know, be burning the midnight oil trying to convict Mr. Ruto and Mr. Sang, and making no apologies about it, because that's her job. Our job is to convict individuals that she believes are culpable. Okay? The court itself, the credibility of the ICC will rest not on how many convictions it gets. It will rest on whether it is seen to do justice, even if there are no convictions. Yeah. Secondly, I think the ICC performs other functions. It has a deterrent effect on would-be offenders for crimes against humanity. You know, there's already some evidence that suggests that this particular election that was here in Kenya in 2013 went off without violence because of the ICC cases. You know, so there are other benefits, you know, to the court itself, you know, being there. So I would say to you that, no, I don't think there's pressure on the court to convict anyone. I think there's a pressure on the court to show that it is doing justice.
Yeah. We see prayer meetings on weekends held in various parts, well, in the various parts of the Rift Valley in particular.
Yes.
Huge prayer meetings.
Yes.
And everyone condemned the ICC.
Yes.
Saying, you know, you're against us, you're victimizing us.
Yes.
What does that do for a case like this?
I think that, you know, if I was Mr. Ruto, I would be extremely upset and angry at individuals who purported to be my friend or my friends and were going out there to conduct so-called prayer meetings, which are nothing but meetings to incite the country against the International Criminal Court. The court is likely to read those meetings as an attempt to intimidate witnesses and to interfere with the court process. You know, so nothing good can come out of those meetings. The fate of Mr. Ruto, whether Mr. Ruto is convicted and sent away for a lifetime or however long, or whether he's found innocent, his fate will be decided in a courtroom. And I would urge him and his supporters to focus on the legal questions in front of them. It serves no purpose for these guys to go around you know, bloviating essentially in public rallies, and a lot of them do not even understand what the International Criminal Court does. I mean, I saw a statement, I read a statement, you know, by Professor Kithure Kindiki, I think the majority leader in the Senate, who himself is a law professor, and is supposed to be a respectable academic, you know, uttering things that shock the conscience, saying that we shall fight the ICC in the air, in the sea, under the water, in the deserts, and so on and so forth. That is foolishness. And you know, I don't know what happens to people when they get a little power. They become psychophantic. And Professor Kindiki should watch his mouth.
Prof, I want to talk about that after the break.
Yes.
The fact, if you mentioned Ruto being convicted.
Yes.
If he is.
Yes.
Who are the possible replacements, Prof? Who can fill in that void? Because 2017 is literally around the corner. Let's talk about that. Also, former Deputy Inspector General of Police,
yes,
Koinange,
yes,
either thrown out or pushed out the window, and
yes,
she's fighting it tooth and nail.
Yes.
Was it fair? Was it unfair? What's going on in this country? And also the judiciary.
Yes.
There's some retirements coming up.
Yeah.
Good thing, bad thing?
Yeah, but I don't know why people are concerned about Mr. Ruto. You know, I'm sitting right here. I could be a running mate to someone.
You can't even call President Kenyatta.
But that's neither here nor there. That's neither here nor there. You know, people seem to have this deterministic view about leadership in this country. People think that Mr. Ruto must be there or hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
Nothing of the sort.
Before we go to break, just say President Kenyatta. Just say
Mr. Kenyatta.
If you were around during Kenyatta 1, oh man,
yes,
you'd be in Maralao somewhere.
I'll probably be a goner, you know. I'll probably be a goner, you know. Yes.
At Makau Mutua, at Koinange Jeff, the hashtag SOTN, State of the Nation. We're talking issues with the one man who fears nobody, calls it like he sees it. Former Dean, the SUNY Buffalo School of Law, he's a distinguished professor as well, on his way to the World Bank to do some World Bank work. Jeff Koinange Live takes a break. We'll be back in a moment.